First contact. Captain John Mason stood at the viewport of the Earth Defense Force vessel Relentless, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing a massive fleet of unknown ships approaching the outer colonies. The vessels were unlike anything humans had encountered before. Sleek, crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them as they moved through space. "Sir, we're picking up transmissions from the unknown fleet," said Communications Officer Lisa Daniels, her fingers dancing across the control panel. "It's not matching any known language patterns in our database, but the translation matrix is working on it." Mason nodded, his face grim. "Keep at it, Daniels. I want to know who they are and what they want before they get any closer to our colonies." The bridge was tense as officers monitored their stations. The Relentless had been dispatched to this sector after automated buoys detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of human space. What they found was far more concerning than anyone had anticipated. "Translation complete, Captain," Daniels announced after several minutes. You need to hear this." She played the message through the ship's comm system, and a harsh, guttural voice filled the bridge. "Attention, primitive species. You have been detected by the glorious Vexari Empire, rulers of 70% of this galaxy. Your worlds are now claimed in the name of Emperor Zoltar. Surrender immediately and submit to Vexari authority, or face annihilation." "Well," Mason said dryly, "at least they're direct." He immediately opened a secure channel to Earth Command. Admiral Kate Stewart appeared on screen, her silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, expression serious as Mason briefed her on the situation. "This is most concerning, Captain," Stewart said. "We've suspected other intelligent life existed in our galaxy, but we never expected first contact to come in the form of an invasion fleet. I'm calling an emergency meeting with Earth's military leadership. Hold your position, but do not engage unless fired upon." Within hours, the highest-ranking officers of Earth's combined military forces had gathered virtually. They watched the recordings of the Vexari fleet with growing concern. "We should attempt peaceful contact," suggested General William Harris. "Perhaps this is just their standard approach, and they can be reasoned with." Others weren't so optimistic. "Their message makes their intentions clear," argued Colonel Patricia Evans. "They see us as territory to be conquered." Admiral Stewart made the final decision. "We'll try diplomacy first, but prepare our defenses. Captain Mason, you're authorized to establish communication with the Vexari fleet." Back on the Relentless, Mason opened a channel to the Lid Vexari vessel. After several attempts, a response came through. The view screen displayed a tall reptilian being with iridescent scales and 4 yellow eyes. "I am Commander Krull of the Vexari Empire," the alien said. "Have you contacted us to surrender your worlds?" "I am Captain John Mason of Earth. We wish to establish peaceful relations with the Vexari Empire. There is no need for conflict." Krull made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peace. The Vexari do not negotiate with lesser species. We conquer. We rule. You will submit or be destroyed. We have subjugated over 300 species. Humans will be no different. Commander Krull, I urge you to reconsider. War would be costly for both our peoples." "Your primitive weapons are no match for Vexari technology," Krull sneered. "We have scanned your vessels. You have not even developed proper graviton weaponry. You are barely out of your stellar cradle." Mason remained calm. "Appearances can be deceiving, Commander. You have 1 planetary rotation to begin your surrender process," Krull stated before cutting the transmission. Mason looked around at his crew, their faces showing a mixture of fear and determination. "Well," he said, "it seems the Vexari Empire has never had a war with humans before." He opened a channel to Earth Command. "Admiral Stewart, I think we need to show these Vexari exactly what they're dealing with." Dr. Eric Nelson sat in the dimly lit conference room aboard the Earth Defense Force Command Station, surrounded by holographic displays of the Vexari fleet. His eyes were tired from hours of analyzing the intercepted communications and historical records extracted from unencrypted Vexari databases. Their entire civilization has never faced serious military resistance, Nelson explained to the assembled military leaders. The Vexari expanded through regions populated by peaceful species who either lacked significant military capabilities or surrendered quickly to preserve their populations. Admiral Kate Stewart nodded slowly. So they've never fought an enemy that could actually hurt them. Exactly, Nelson replied. Their tactics are straightforward and rely heavily on intimidation. They expect immediate surrender once they display their numerical superiority. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez, a tactical specialist known for unconventional thinking, stood up. Then perhaps we need to show them that humans don't scare easily. A demonstration might make them reconsider. The room went quiet as all eyes turned to Admiral Stewart. What kind of demonstration did you have in mind, Lieutenant? She asked. Rodriguez smiled. Something small enough not to start a full-scale war, but significant enough to make them think twice. 12 hours later, Commander Olivia Graham led a squadron of 5 small, sleek vessels toward the Vexari flagship. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her voice remained steady as she opened communications. Vexari Command, this is Commander Graham of the Earth Defense Force. I request to speak with Commander Krull regarding the terms you delivered. After a brief delay, Krull's reptilian face appeared on screen. Have you come to surrender, human? Not exactly, Graham replied calmly. I've come to deliver a message from Earth. Krull's 4 yellow eyes blinked in sequence. Speak then, before I lose my patience. Graham's expression remained neutral. The people of Earth have examined your demands and respectfully decline. We don't want war with the Vexari Empire, but if you force our hand, we have one warning for you. Run. Laughter erupted from Krull and the other Vexari visible on the bridge of their massive ship. Run, from primitive apes who have barely left their home planet. Krull hissed with amusement. Your species truly is delusional. Perhaps, Graham acknowledged. But before you dismiss our warning, allow us to demonstrate something. She nodded to her weapons officer. Instantly, all 5 human vessels released seemingly small projectiles toward a nearby unoccupied moon that orbited a gas giant in the system. Krull watched with contempt. Your weapons are pathetically. His words cut off as the projectiles struck the moon. Instead of simple explosions, the impacts triggered a cascade reaction. Within seconds, massive fissures spread across the lunar surface. Before the Vexari could process what was happening, the entire moon, roughly 1/3 the size of Earth's own satellite, shattered into billions of fragments. Silence filled the communication channel. That was 5 small ships with minimal armaments, Graham said quietly. Imagine what our actual military vessels can do. This is your only warning, Commander Krull. The Vexari Empire has never had war with humans before, and you don't want to be the first. Krull's scales darkened with anger. You dare threaten the mighty Vexari. This display changes nothing. Your colonies will still fall. Graham sighed. Then you've made your choice. Remember, we tried to warn you. As the human ships turned to depart, Krull bellowed orders to his subordinates. Prepare attack formations. These humans need to learn their place. One of Krull's officers approached cautiously. Commander, perhaps we should report this development to the Emperor before engaging. Their weapon technology is unexpected. Nonsense, Krull snapped. They destroyed an uninhabited rock. That doesn't mean they can stand against our armada. The humans think their little demonstration will frighten us. They will soon learn what true fear is. As Graham's squadron returned to the Relentless, Captain Mason met her on the docking bay. Did they listen? He asked. Graham shook her head. They're mobilizing their fleet. They didn't heed the warning. Mason's expression hardened. Then they'll learn the hard way. The morning alarms blared throughout Europa Colony as Vexari warships descended on the settlement. Red emergency lights flashed in every corridor as colonists rushed to safety bunkers. Governor Paul Martinez stood in the colony's control center, watching the tactical displays with a grim expression. They're targeting our main power generators and communication arrays. reported his security chief. 4 capital ships and at least 20 smaller vessels. Martinez nodded calmly. Just as we expected. Begin evacuation protocols for non-essential personnel. How long until they breach our outer defenses? At their current rate of fire, 20 minutes, sir. Martinez opened a secure channel to all section leaders. This is Governor Martinez. Initiation sequence Alpha 7 is now active. I repeat, Alpha 7 is active. All units to designated positions. Throughout the colony, civilian workers transformed into military personnel as hidden compartments in walls and floors opened to reveal advanced weaponry. What had appeared to be a vulnerable science outpost was rapidly becoming a fortress. On the Vexeri command ship, Commander Krull watched with satisfaction as his forces bombarded the human colony. Their defenses are primitive, just as our scans indicated, his tactical officer reported. They have basic shield technology, but nothing that can withstand sustained bombardment from our cannons. Krull's scales shimmered with pleasure. Excellent. Prepare landing parties. I want this colony secured within 2 hours. The humans must learn the price of defiance. Back on Europa, Diane Foster, head engineer of the colony, activated a system that had remained dormant since the outpost's construction. Deep beneath the icy surface, massive generators hummed to life. Prototype shields at full capacity, Governor, Foster announced. Ready on your command. Martinez allowed himself a small smile. Engage. Suddenly, the Vexeri bombardment ceased to impact the colony. Their energy weapons dissipated harmlessly against an invisible barrier that now surrounded the human settlement. What is happening? Krull demanded as his bridge officers scrambled to understand. Why are our weapons not penetrating their defenses? Unknown, Commander, his science officer replied. They appear to have activated some kind of energy shield we didn't detect in our initial scans. It's deflecting our attack completely. Krull slammed his fist against his command chair. Impossible. Increase power to all weapons. These primitives cannot possess technology superior to ours. On Europa, Martinez watched as the Vexeri intensified their attack to no effect. Phase 2, he ordered. Throughout the colony, hidden platforms rose from the icy terrain, revealing defense turrets that had been concealed beneath the surface. They began firing in perfect coordination, targeting the smaller Vexeri vessels first. The alien ships, unprepared for this level of resistance, attempted evasive maneuvers too late. 3 exploded immediately, while 5 more sustained critical damage. Return fire with everything we have. Krull ordered, his voice rising with anger and disbelief. Launch all fighters. These humans will not make fools of us. The space above Europa became a chaos of weapons fire and explosions as the Vexeri threw everything at the colony. Yet for every volley they launched, the human defenses had a counter. After an hour of sustained battle, Krull was forced to order a retreat. 7 of his ships had been destroyed, with many others damaged. This is not possible, he hissed as his remaining forces pulled back to a safe distance. They were supposed to be defenseless. Our intelligence indicated basic technology only. The humans appear to have concealed their true capabilities, Commander, his second-in-command suggested carefully. Krull's eyes narrowed to slits. This changes nothing. It was merely one colony with unexpected defenses. We still have the might of the entire Vexeri Empire. He opened a channel to the Imperial fleet. This is Commander Krull requesting reinforcements. We have encountered resistance from the humans. On Europa, the colonists celebrated their victory, but Governor Martinez knew better than to get overconfident. They'll be back, he told Foster as they watched the Vexeri ships retreat. And next time, they'll bring more firepower. Foster nodded. By then, the rest of our defenses will be online. Let them come. Martinez activated his comm link to Earth Command. Admiral Stewart, Europa Colony reporting. First Vexeri attack repelled successfully. They still think we're just lucky primitives. President Alan Mitchell gazed out at the faces around the circular table in Earth's most secure bunker, 5 kilometers beneath the surface. Leaders from all of humanity's colonies, both in the solar system and beyond, attended either in person or as high-definition holograms that made them appear solid and present. The Vexeri Empire has now attacked 3 of our colonies, Mitchell said, his voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. Each time, they have retreated with significant losses, but intelligence suggests they are mobilizing their main fleet. We must prepare for full-scale war. General Maria Rodriguez stood up, activating the central holographic display. A 3-dimensional map of human-controlled space appeared, with red markers indicating Vexeri positions. We've named our defensive strategy Operation Hornet's Nest, she explained. The Vexeri expect us to concentrate our forces to protect Earth and our major colonies. Instead, we will do the opposite. The hologram shifted, showing human fleets dispersing to seemingly random positions throughout their territory. We're deliberately leaving apparent gaps in our defenses, Rodriguez continued. When the Vexeri move through these corridors, they'll find themselves surrounded and attacked from multiple directions. Chief Strategist Ryan Cooper, a former chess grandmaster who had revolutionized Earth's military doctrine, stepped forward. The key to our approach is our command structure. Unlike the Vexeri, who depend on central authority and rigid hierarchies, human forces operate on distributed command principles. He manipulated the display to show the Vexeri command structure, a perfect pyramid with Emperor Zoltar at the top, contrasted against the human network, which resembled a complex web with multiple interconnected nodes. They can't win by taking out our leadership because our system doesn't depend on it, Cooper explained. Each colony, each fleet, each unit can continue fighting effectively, even if completely cut off from central command. Scientist Ben Harper, director of the Advanced Warfare Division, activated his own presentation. We've developed specialized guerrilla warfare tactics adapted for space combat. The display showed small, agile human ships attacking larger Vexeri vessels, striking vulnerable points before quickly retreating. Our ships are programmed to target their navigation systems, weapons arrays, and communication nodes, Harper said. We don't need to destroy their vessels completely, just render them combat ineffective. Admiral Stewart, who had been quietly observing, finally spoke. The Vexeri have conquered hundreds of species through intimidation and overwhelming force. They've never faced an enemy that fights asymmetrically. She stood and walked to the center of the room. Humanity has been fighting itself for thousands of years. We've mastered warfare in ways the Vexeri can't imagine. While they've been the playground bully, picking on weaker species, we've been hardening ourselves through conflict and competition. The room fell silent as her words sank in. What about the colonies themselves? Asked the governor of Proxima Centauri, her hologram flickering slightly. How do we protect our people? Mitchell nodded to Vice Admiral Jack Dawson, head of Colonial Defense. Each colony has been designed as a potential fortress, Dawson explained. What the Vexeri see as vulnerable scientific or mining outposts are actually heavily armed bases disguised as civilian installations. When they attack, they'll face resistance from every direction. The meeting continued for hours as they refined the strategy. By the end, a clear consensus had emerged. Humanity wouldn't fight the way the Vexeri expected. They wouldn't mass their forces for decisive battles or protect their homeworld at all costs. Instead, they would turn their entire territory into a deadly trap. As the meeting concluded, President Mitchell addressed the assembly one final time. The Vexeri believe they are facing a primitive species that will either surrender or be easily defeated. They don't understand who they're dealing with. We tried to warn them to run. Now they'll learn why. Admiral Stewart remained behind as the others filed out. Do you think it will be enough? Mitchell asked her quietly. It will have to be, she replied. But remember, we still have our final contingencies if all else fails. Mitchell nodded gravely. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Emperor Zoltar paced across the crystalline floor of his war chamber, his forearms clasped behind his back, scales shifting from deep blue to angry red. Around him, the highest-ranking military advisors of the Vexari Empire stood in uncomfortable silence. "Explain to me," Zoltar hissed, "how a species that has barely left its home system is defeating the mightiest armada in the galaxy." Admiral Vex, commander of the Imperial fleet, stepped forward. His scales were dull with exhaustion after weeks of humiliating defeats. "Emperor, our initial assessment of human technology was incomplete," he admitted. "They appear to have developed along different technological paths than other species we've encountered." The Emperor stopped pacing. "Different how?" A science officer activated a holographic display showing captured human technology. While most species, including ourselves, focused on energy weapons and shields, humans specialized in artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and quantum computing. They don't build larger weapons, they build smarter ones. On a human colony world designated Target 7, Dr. Nicole Watson monitored the battle from deep within a mountain bunker. The walls around her displayed real-time footage from thousands of combat drones engaging the Vexari fleet. "Releasing AI warfare units, Batch 5, she announced to her team. "Adaptive algorithms active." The screen showed small, sleek drones swarming toward Vexari ships. Unlike conventional weapons, these drones learned from each encounter, adjusting their tactics and targeting based on observed Vexari responses. "They're adapting again," Watson noted as the Vexari ships attempted a new defensive formation, uploading countermeasures to the swarm. The drones immediately shifted their approach, bypassing the Vexari defenses and targeting critical systems with precision strikes. Elsewhere in the system, Lieutenant Gray Harrison led a team of cyber warfare specialists aboard a stealth vessel shadowing the Vexari command ship. "We're in their navigation systems," Harrison reported, "implementing Operation Ghost Ship now." His fingers danced across the interface, injecting corrupted data into the Vexari navigation computers. On the screens, they watched as 3 enemy destroyers veer off course, their systems convinced they were heading toward human vessels that didn't exist. "Collision course in 3, 2, 1. Harrison counted down. The Vexari ships crashed into each other, their shields harmonizing at precisely the frequency that caused catastrophic failure in both vessels. "That's not even advanced technology," Harrison remarked to his team. "Just a deep understanding of how their systems work." Meanwhile, engineer Frank Collins supervised the deployment of what might be humanity's most terrifying weapon yet. From the cargo bay of an unmarked transport ship, canisters of metallic dust dispersed toward the largest Vexari battleship. "Nanite swarm activated," Collins confirmed. "Beginning consumption phase." The microscopic machines attached themselves to the hull of the Vexari vessel. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, patches of the ship's exterior began to disappear as the nanites broke down the material at the molecular level, using it to replicate themselves. "How is this possible?" demanded a Vexari captain as reports flooded in of hull breaches across his ship. "What kind of weapon dissolves tritanium armor?" Back in the Emperor's war chamber, Admiral Vex continued his grim report. "The humans don't fight like any species we've encountered. They avoid direct confrontation with our main forces, instead targeting supply lines, communication networks, and isolated ships." "And their colonies," Zoltar demanded. "Worse," admitted the Admiral. "What our intelligence identified as vulnerable civilian outposts turned out to be heavily fortified military bases. We've lost 17 attack groups attempting to secure just 5 colonies." Emperor Zoltar's scales shifted to a deep purple, a sign of rage among his kind. "How could a primitive species develop such technologies without our knowledge? We monitor all potential threats." The science officer hesitated before answering. "There is only one explanation, Emperor. The humans must have been aware of galactic civilization long before we discovered them. They've been preparing for this conflict while appearing primitive." Zoltar's eyes narrowed to slits. Then they knew we would come, and they warned us to run. Yes, Emperor, Admiral Vex confirmed quietly. And we did not listen. The massive Vexari flagship emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, flanked by hundreds of warships. At its center was a weapon never before deployed against any species, the Planet Cracker. The enormous cannon protruded from the front of the vessel, gathering energy from nearby stars and converting it into a beam capable of shattering a world's crust. The humans have resisted longer than any species in our history, Emperor Zoltar declared from his command throne. But this ends today. They will watch as we destroy their homeworld, and then the survivors will surrender or face extinction. Admiral Vex stood at attention beside his emperor, but doubt clouded his mind. The humans had consistently outmaneuvered them for months. Could this truly be their final solution? The Planet Cracker requires 17 minutes to charge fully, the weapons officer announced. All systems functioning normally. On Earth, in the underground command center, Admiral Kate Stewart received the reports of the Vexari superfleet's arrival with remarkable calm. They'd brought their Planet Cracker, she noted, just as our intelligence predicted. President Mitchell looked concerned despite months of preparation. Are we certain Protocol Omega will work? We've never tested it against a weapon of this magnitude. It will work, Stewart assured him. Scientist Heather Morris has confirmed the calculations. She activated her communication link. Vice Admiral Sullivan, the stage is yours. Beyond Neptune's orbit, Vice Admiral Jake Sullivan sat aboard the command ship of Earth's hidden fleet, 200 vessels that had been concealed within the outer planet's moons and asteroid fields. This armada represented humanity's true military might, held in reserve until this precise moment. All ships, execute Protocol Omega, Sullivan ordered. Emergence pattern Delta. Across the solar system, concealed hangar doors opened on what had appeared to be barren moons and asteroids. Human warships, larger and more advanced than any the Vexari had yet encountered, moved into formation. On the Vexari flagship, alarms blared as sensors detected the sudden appearance of hundreds of human vessels. Impossible, Zoltar snarled. Where did they come from? Why weren't they detected? They appear to have been hiding within celestial bodies throughout the system, the sensor officer reported, his scales pale with shock. They're moving to surround us. It doesn't matter, Zoltar declared. The Planet Cracker will fire in 9 minutes. No defense can stop it. Continue charging. On Earth, scientist Heather Morris stood in a circular chamber surrounded by quantum processors. Her team had worked for years perfecting the technology that was humanity's best hope for survival. Quantum displacement shield at 90% capacity, Morris reported. Ready to deploy on your command, Admiral. Stewart nodded. Activate when the Vexari weapon fires, not before. The minutes ticked by as the Vexari Planet Cracker gathered its devastating energy. Human ships made no move to attack, instead forming a complex pattern around Earth that puzzled the Vexari tacticians. Planet Cracker at full charge, the Vexari weapons officer announced. Firing sequence initiated. Let them fire, Sullivan instructed his fleet. Hold positions. The front of the Vexari flagship glowed with blinding energy as the Planet Cracker released its beam toward Earth. The destructive force surged across space, powerful enough to shatter planets. Now, Stewart ordered. Morris activated the quantum displacement shield. Instead of attempting to block the energy beam, the shield created a quantum field that folded space around Earth. The Planet Cracker's energy didn't impact a barrier. It entered a quantum loop that redirected it back toward its source. On the Vexari flagship, horror spread across the bridge as their own weapons' energy reflected back toward them. Evasive maneuvers. Admiral Vex shouted, but it was too late. The redirected beam struck not the flagship but the Planet Cracker cannon itself. The weapon imploded, creating a cascade reaction that disabled the Vexari vessel. As the flagship drifted powerless, Sullivan's voice came through on all Vexari communication channels. Emperor Zoltar, your superweapon has failed. Your fleet is surrounded. Earth is unharmed. We warned you to run. Now it's too late. Sullivan turned to his communications officer. Send the boarding parties. It's time to capture an emperor. On Earth, President Mitchell watched the screens showing the disabled Vexari flagship. Is it over? Admiral Stewart shook her head. No, Mr. President. Now the real work begins. Emperor Zoltar knelt in chains before the Earth Alliance Council. 6 months had passed since the failure of the planet Cracker and the capture of the Vexari flagship. In that time, humanity had moved swiftly from defense to offense, liberating dozens of worlds that had suffered under Vexari rule. The Galactic Alliance of Free Species welcomes representatives from 17 formerly subjugated civilizations, announced Ambassador Carol Phillips, standing at the center of the circular chamber. Today marks the official surrender of the Vexari Empire and the beginning of a new era of cooperation among all sentient beings. Zoltar's scales had faded to a dull gray, the color of shame in Vexari culture. Behind him stood former Commander Krull, now wearing the insignia of the provisional government that had replaced the imperial regime. As the representative of the Vexari Transitional Council, Krull stated, I formally recognize the sovereignty of all species previously claimed by our empire and request membership in the Galactic Alliance. Many were surprised by Krull's defection. But after witnessing human military capabilities firsthand, he had become one of the strongest advocates for peace. He now understood what the humans had meant by their warning. Admiral Kate Stewart approached the former emperor. You had the chance to retreat, to avoid this conflict. Instead, you chose war with a species you didn't understand. Zoltar looked up, his 4 eyes dull with defeat. How? How could primitive apes who had barely achieved spaceflight defeat the greatest empire the galaxy has ever known? President Mitchell stepped forward. That was your first mistake, assuming we were primitive because we appeared to be. He activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. Humanity detected signals from your empire 300 years ago. We intercepted your communications, studied your technology, and learned about your conquests while remaining hidden. The display showed early human space probes carefully designed to appear less advanced than they actually were. We knew someday you would find us, Mitchell continued. So we prepared. Every colony we built was a fortress in disguise. Every technology we developed was with your eventual arrival in mind. The gathered representatives from other species listened in astonishment as the truth was revealed. Your second mistake, Admiral Stewart added, was believing that a species that has spent its entire history fighting itself wouldn't know how to fight you. Humans have been perfecting warfare against each other for thousands of years. The Vexari never stood a chance. In the far reaches of former Vexari space, General Maria Rodriguez watched as human ships helped the Nexilians reclaim their homeworld. The insectoid species had been among the first conquered by the Vexari centuries ago. Your people saved us, the Nexilian leader chittered gratefully. We never believed freedom was possible. Rodriguez smiled. We understand oppression. Throughout our history, humans have both been oppressors and fought against oppression. We've learned that freedom must be protected. Back on Earth, the surrender ceremony concluded with the signing of the Galactic Alliance Charter. Ambassador Phillips presented the document to representatives from all member species. This alliance is not built on conquest, but on mutual respect and cooperation, she declared. Each species maintains its sovereignty while contributing to our collective security and prosperity. Former Commander Krull approached Admiral Stewart after the ceremony. I understand now, he said quietly. You weren't just more technologically advanced than we thought. You think differently than any species we've encountered. Stewart nodded. Adversity breeds innovation. Humanity faced extinction-level threats multiple times in our history. We survived by adapting, by thinking beyond conventional solutions. The warning you gave us, Krull reflected. You truly meant it as a mercy. We did, Stewart confirmed. War benefits no one, but if forced into conflict, humans fight to win, completely and decisively. As Zoltar was led away to begin his life sentence on a prison colony, he passed Mitchell. You could have destroyed us entirely, the former emperor observed. Why didn't you? Mitchell's expression remained neutral. Because the difference between humanity and the Vexeri Empire is that we understand the value of mercy, even toward those who showed none to others. The president turned to Admiral Stewart as they watched Earth's new allies departing for their home systems. Do you think the galaxy will remember the lesson? He asked. Stewart's gaze followed the ships as they vanished into hyperspace. I believe they will. After all, we gave them a simple message that's easy to remember. When humans warn you to run, don't hesitate.